This is the first Citizen School Board Forum, and my name is Lisa Ford, and I will be the moderator. And I do not have children that go to Broken Arrow Public Schools. I live in Union District in Broken Arrow. I have been on the school board, so I told them I know how they feel in these seats, so I'm hoping to make them feel as comfortable as possible. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I have them seated in alphabetical order because that's how I have them on my sheet. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. The candidate will receive a 1-minute warning. Ross will give that to you. A 30-second warning, and then a 10-second warning. Then a red card, well, it's actually pink, will indicate your 2 minutes are up. It'll say stop. And speaking of our timekeeper, this is State Representative Ross Ford is our timekeeper. Okay, and he wanted me to let you know that the time is going to start as soon as you start talking. So, is that right? Anything else, Mr. Timekeeper? We good? Yeah, Josh did. I've got that down. Yeah, thank you. Oh, okay, okay, we'll get that. Okay, so there are bios, I think, of each candidate. At least I see 3 as you walked in, so if you did not get that prior, you can get them on your way out. So candidates, I'd like for you to introduce yourself, tell us what motivated you to run for school board, and again, you'll have 2 minutes. And JW, we'll start with you.
Okay. I'm going to introduce myself. I was born 73 years ago in a little town called Louisville, Kentucky. And that's where, they got beautiful horses and fast women. So it was a great place to be from. I've worked for the General Electric Company for 40 years. I've lived in 9 states, 13 cities, and 1 foreign country, and traveled extensively in the United States and foreign countries. At GE, I did a lot of jobs like managing businesses is what I finally ended up doing, was a professional manager. And they would send me into businesses that were failing, and I would either turn them around or close them. And I got to say, I had a better record of turning them around than they'd closing them. And it was very exciting work and very rewarding work. After 40 years, I ended up retiring as director of after-sales service for GE Ultrasound, about half of the United States, and that's working directly with hospitals and things like that. The things that got me into this, I don't know if I mentioned, I've got 4 kids, 9 grandkids, and 5 great-grandkids. So kids are my life, and it's something that I really fight for, and that's one of the big reasons why I got into this. I wanted to make sure that when I see all the nonsense going on TV, and even in Tulsa, Norman, it's like, I don't want that coming here to my town. This town I could have lived anywhere in this country, or actually anywhere in the world, and after living all those places, this was the place I wanted to retire to. It had the best Christian, conservative people that I ever met. They're like, well, let me spend the rest of my life right here, and I've been here for 22 years, so it worked out real for me. Anyway, I want to make sure that we don't saddle our children with things like masks, critical race theory, and all that kind of nonsense that we all know as parents is nonsense. So, okay, I've got 10 seconds left, so I'll try to hope you ask some questions, and I'll try to do a little better job of managing my time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if you all can talk into the microphones, not only will it help them hear, but also the people that are watching it being streamed live, it'll be easier for them to hear. And JW, I just didn't want to interrupt you while you were doing your introduction, so thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, George?
My name is George Ghesquire. I grew up in Southeast Michigan. I went to kindergarten at the local public school, at which point they started implementing what was called the Michigan model, which was going down some paths that my mom did not approve of. And so she pulled me out and homeschooled me for 11 years, along with all of my siblings who were homeschooled their entire life. And then I went to a small Christian school for my senior year when I realized there was really not much more I could learn at home. And so I kind of got the full swing of the public, homeschool, private throughout my educational time. I moved to Broken Arrow to go to Rhema, graduated there in '99 with a 4.0, if that means anything. But yeah, so those of you that know, it's not like it's super hard tests. But at that point, I was heavily involved at Guts Church. I've been there for 23 years. My wife and I got married 22 years ago. We have 4 kids. 2 of them are natural, 2 of them are adopted. And so we definitely understand a little bit of the struggle on, when you're putting kids through the school and when you have children that are the difficult child. And so that can be something that's difficult for teachers, and that's something that's important to me, to help give the teachers the tools and the authority to be able to take ownership of their classroom. And that's part of the reason I got into this. I felt like God was leading me to at least run. And so I'm just going to do my level best. I work for a commercial drywall contractor here in Broken Arrow. Been there 21 years. And I worked my way from being somebody who knew nothing to one of our best foremen. I moved into the office to do project management and estimating, and I've been doing that for almost 10.
Okay, thank you very much. Robyn?
You ready? Okay. Hi, my name is Robyn Havener, and I am a graduate of Broken Arrow Public Schools. I've lived in the same house I live in now from the 8th grade till I went off to Oklahoma State. Graduated from Oklahoma State with a marketing degree, and after a few years, we bought the house, moved back to Broken Arrow, and so we have lived in that house for 11 years. Both of my kids are Broken Arrow Public Schools kids. One of them's been there since kindergarten, one of them since 1st grade, and I have been involved in PTA since the 1st grade when I got suckered in by, if you've ever met Heather Hoffman over at Oliver, she said, "Hey, I think you should come help," and that was it for me. So I've been super involved with their PTA from that time on. Currently serve as the president of Childers PTA for the last 2 years. But in addition to that, over the last 4 or 5 years, I started building a business here in Broken Arrow. And as I did that, got the opportunity through that to get very involved in the community. And so I feel incredibly blessed to participate in the Rotary Club of Broken Arrow. I'll be serving as the president of that next year. I've also gotten the opportunity to spend the last 4 years as part of the Leadership Broken Arrow program, which, if you're familiar with, that is just a great opportunity to learn almost everything about Broken Arrow. So I've gotten to get a little bit of taste of the city, of public safety, of education, and currently am serving as the chair of that this year. I decided to do this probably close to 3 years ago because I saw some areas of opportunity as my kids were coming up through the elementary schools that I believe that Broken Arrow can continue to improve. And I wanted to take a chance and an opportunity to see where I could offer my gifts to our school board to continue to improve our district.
Okay, thank you. Debbie?
Thank you. I'm Debbie Taylor. We have lived in Broken Arrow for 33 years. My husband and I are 44 years. I have got 4 sons who all graduated from Broken Arrow High School. They've gotten various degrees. My oldest son received a commendation to the Naval Academy and served as an officer in the Navy. I have 9 grandchildren who are attending school now in Broken Arrow. My oldest grandson graduated 2 years ago and is now serving in the Army. He's a drone mechanic. So he had competed in Pride, and we were very proud of him. I also have a company my husband and I founded 27 years ago. And so owning the company is quite a bit different budgeting. So we learned how to budget for payroll, for growth, for different things that I think will help on the school board because Broken Arrow is growing. And so we have to look to the future of Broken Arrow. I decided to run for the school board because I could see things that were happening in the rest of the country that were not good, and I wanted to make sure that that was not happening here in Broken Arrow. We have a great Broken Arrow community, and I think our schools should reflect that greatness. And I want to be sure that as far as the curriculum, as far as transparency, I want the teachers, the grandparents, the parents, all to be on the same page that this is about the children so that they can have an education where they can think critically, they can solve problems, they can go and be successful and fulfill their dreams. We want our children to be able to learn science, math, all the things that we expect them to learn. And so I just wanted to be a part of making sure that we're not having our teachers do so many various things that they can't excel in any. I don't want them to be overwhelmed with too many different things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Could you all hear Debbie okay, or do we need to turn her mic up a little bit? Okay, Josh, can you turn up Debbie's, or whoever is in charge, can you turn up Debbie's mic, please? Thank you, sir. Most of these questions are just like one sentence, but there are a couple that are kind of lengthy. If I need to repeat any question, just ask me. It's not a problem at all. Okay, the next question is, define local control in regards to education and what local control means to you. And we will start with George.
Lucky me. So when you say words like local control, it seems to be self-evident, but it means that teachers have control of their own classrooms, that the principals have control of their own schools, that the district has control of its own district policy. And there are a lot of things I'm aware that we don't have control of. There's a lot of federal regulations that are tying hands of our teachers to be able to be the most effective teachers they can be. And they're tying hands of parents to be able to get involved the way they would like to be involved. And that's one of the things that is high on my priority list, is if there are things that are tying the hands of our teachers to be able to keep control in their classroom, to be able to, for instance, if we have a child that's acting out and they have an IEP, and that's understandable. But if the child is becoming a danger to all those around them, then that child needs to have something they worked out where they can be separated and not pull the entire class out to get away from them. And that's just something that's really strong on my heart. That is one of the hardest things to get around. When a teacher is trying to teach and they're being constantly disrupted, it ruins the experience, not just for the students, but also for the teacher. And when we're in critical need of teachers and those kind of regulations are driving them away, we need to make changes at the legislative level. And so I want to work with the legislators to change some of those things so that the teachers can teach and not have to worry about all of the regulation tying their hands.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
So ask the second part of the question.
Okay,
Define local control.
Okay, define local control in regards to education and what local control means to you.
So in terms of education, that would fall on the school board. But the reality is that school board members really only have several jobs, and that is they hire the superintendent. That is one of their main jobs, is determining who the superintendent's going to be. The superintendent then runs the school district itself. So a lot of decisions are made based on the superintendent's decisions. Then the school board also manages the budget. So that is definitely part of their local control, is determining how the budget dollars are spent. And then there are a few various other things that are board policies, things like that, that fall under the school board itself. So then you have state regulations that you are held to, and then there's obviously the federal regulations that George alluded to, which is, so both of those are things that you have to live within. So a lot of curriculum standards are actually set at the state level, not at the school board level. And you have to find curriculum that meet those standards. So you are limited in terms of what the school board can do within that capacity. So those are things that would have to be changed at a state level for the school board to be able to affect them. And then to me, local control really is about trying to allow that the people that are most affected by the decisions are the ones that are able to affect the decisions. But we elect officials for that. That's why we have city councilors, why we have school board members, is to allow us to interact with the community and try to help make those decisions at the local level.
Okay, thank you. Debbie?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Local control is important, and that's actually why we are having this meeting here tonight and why we are having the election next Tuesday, because you need to have a voice in what goes on in our schools, what curriculum the children are being taught with, what goes on. The school board has lots of responsibility as far as fiscally, as far as the policies in the schools. That's all local control. There's a lot of finances that come from the federal government, but with those finances, those different funds, come strings or, responsibilities that you have to fulfill because you took those funds. And I think that is something we need to be careful of, because sometimes those things are things that as a community, we don't really want in our schools. So there again, it's the school board having communication with you. And so thank you for being here, because local control means you. And so you have a voice because you will vote on next Tuesday, and we can have the kind of schools that we want to have. I agree with Governor Stitt. Our students, our schools can be number 10 in the state, in the nation. We can do it because our kids are smart. And so I am thankful for local control, and I want to be careful about other influences that are coming into our schools from outside of Broken Arrow.
Okay, thank you. JW,
Yeah, well, I think I'm agree
can you
with
use your
every-
mic, please,
Oh,
sir? I
sorry.
know, that's okay.
Usually my voice is loud enough, people don't need it, but I'll use this.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, obviously parents, I've always thought that parents, I was one of those guys, and like I said, I've been in 13 cities in one foreign country, and all those had school boards and schools, and they knew me pretty well. Now, I never got to spend the longest I ever spent in a city was in Scottsdale, Arizona, when my son was finishing high school. But all the other ones, I was down there whenever I needed to be, and talking to teachers, and I was involved. In other words, never a problem. I had one situation where my kid wasn't bringing homework home. I set up a deal with the teacher where I gave her stamped self-addressed envelopes so that she could send me his homework so that he couldn't sneak around it. It was typical little boy. So I get involved all I can. One thing I'd really look toward too is looking at the budgets. I went down there and met with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, Broken Arrow, and I remember when they built that place, I just shook my head and thought about the amount of money they spend on that stuff that is just basically wasted. I mean, it's just empty space. Big, beautiful bed, and I know that I think it was built on a bond issue, so I'm not sure we're paying any rent or anything like that. But I'd really like to check on that and make sure if we are. I know there's a lot of schools that are probably not being utilized all the way that we could move some of them people into. So again, as a guy that came in failing businesses and audited their books and made sure that they were doing the right thing, I was pretty successful in getting the waste out of there. Like everybody else, I know a couple of legislators pretty good, local ones, and we've got some good ones. I try to work with them to improve things I think need to be improved. And one thing, I don't know if it's legal, but I want to check on it. I'd like to have the Zone 2 Broken Arrow School District. I don't know why we can't have meetings before the big meeting. I know it's hard for people to get a question answered. They do like 2 minutes and then you don't get your questions in. I'd like to sit down and talk to the people in my zone, and before we go to the school meeting. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question, and Robyn, we'll start with you. What do you see as the major issues facing Broken Arrow Public Schools?
So I sat on the redistricting committee a couple of years ago for Rosewood, and I can tell you, gosh, that is probably one of the most challenging things I have ever done, because every decision you make is not just going to affect your child, but it's affecting every child in the district. And that means that some people are going to love what you do and some people are going to really dislike what you do. And you can't win, because you can't pick up schools and move them somewhere else just because the population has moved or shifted. And the vast majority of our schools are pretty close to capacity, quite honestly, and very quickly will be. Rosewood is full as soon as we opened it up, and you know how much more building there is going on out in South Broken Arrow. So we have a bond issuance out right now that we will not be able to re-up until sometime in the 2030s. It's not done until 2026, and because of the way state law is currently written, we will not be able to go back and bond again until 2030 something. We have one elementary school left to build and don't have the dollars to build it, and we have one middle school left to build and not enough finances to build that. So there are some significant Thank you. There are some significant concerns around classroom space that are going to be coming very, very quickly for Broken Arrow, and we are going to need to be very careful with where we are spending the bond dollars we have and how we create more classrooms, because nobody wants to have 25, 27, 30 students in a classroom. There's not good learning that happens at that stage. So that's probably one of the ones that I see that's most significant. And then if we had more time, I could go on for hours and hours, but that's one that I definitely see coming that's problematic.
Okay, Debbie?
That's very true. Of course, we all can see how Broken Arrow is growing. When we moved here 33 years ago, I think the population was 60,000. Now we're at about 130,000. And we see that they have built more schools, but obviously more people are coming in all the time. So building schools, having room for the students is very important. The other thing is having teachers. Do we have enough teachers? We've gone to different business shows, trade shows, and in our company, we've been looking to hire people for quite a while. I think this pandemic has really put a hardship on businesses trying to hire people. So we see that when several teachers were out sick, we can't even find hardly enough substitutes to fill in. So I think that's going to be another thing where we're going to have to find teachers. I spoke with one of the state senators the other day, and he was saying some of the colleges have been discontinuing their degree in education because nobody is applying to be a teacher. So I think there's quite a few things that we're going to have to look at to see that we can have schools, that we can have quality teachers to teach them, room for it, the teachers, substitutes. I think it's a broad spectrum of things that we're going to have to look at. Budgeting is one thing, finding the workers is another.
Okay, thank you. JW?
Yeah, well, you know, money is always a problem in any school system, just like it is in most households. I think one of the things I talked about doing was an audit to find out where the money's going. It always bothered me whenever the teachers, and sometimes I'd actually contribute, you know, Kleenex boxes and things like this for my grandchildren, that they would have to be spending their own money on stuff like that. And I get back to Taj Mahal when I think about all the money that we're spending on places like that, and I'm thinking, well, could we downsize some of that stuff and maybe hire some tutors, maybe give the teachers a fund they could buy that kind of stuff with? I know they got a couple of raises a few years ago, but you know, inflation now is going to be really a problem, so we need to probably readdress that. One of the things that nobody ever thinks about is the guy out there or the gal out there driving the bus. I drove the bus, and I think it was 2017. I had a Class A CDL. Everybody has a bucket list. That was one of my bucket list things, was get a Class A. So when they started hollering on the radio, I said, well, I can do that. So I went down there and drove for 3 years. You know, if you've got two choices. You can go down there and get on and get benefits and all that kind of stuff. You can get what they call a provisionals driver. You don't get any of that stuff, but they don't pay as much. So even though it costs more to have a driver with all the benefits, somebody goes down and says, all I want's a paycheck. I don't want the rest of that stuff. They'll pay you less money per hour. So I think we need to look through that kind of stuff. You might find it a little bit easier to hire people. Also, they still, if I think it was $12.49 when I started out, and I had a college degree and a Class A CDL. Pretty ridiculous. I think we need to look at that. And every year that I've been here, they've been begging for people to come in and drive buses. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I think we need to look at that whole outfit. Also, we need to make sure we're looking at the managers. The guy that's the best school teacher or something like that, not necessarily the best person to run a business. So I'd be very careful about people you put in charge of the bus barns and things like that. So anyway, that's what I do.
Okay, thank you. George?
It's interesting that budgets tend to be high on the list of priorities, which they are. This year, like I say, I've worked commercial drywall. I've seen all of my materials go from 25 to 300%. I mean, just metal studs for commercial drywall projects have tripled in the last year. So there's 3 times as much to buy a single 10-foot metal stud as it was a year ago. Well, that seems like a lot, but multiply that times an entire building like the Taj Mahal. Which honestly, I understand that there's divisions of dollars. The bond issues that go towards building the buildings are not the same as the funding that maintains them and pays the teachers and things of that nature. But it is important to spend it wisely regardless. And I've spent the last 20 years working spent 10 years in the field and 10 years in the office. I've got a great, well-rounded view. It was really funny because when I saw that Mike Leach had been hired as the director of construction, I was like, hey, I know that guy. So when I saw him at the last board meeting, I walked up and he just turned around and went, George. And I was like, sweet action, because that's somebody who's been around a while, and he understands the ebbs and the flows and how a project is supposed to be managed. And so I'm excited to have him as part of the team right now. And as a school board member, it's important to make sure to rely on guys like that, but also not just rely on them, but also to be able to use our own heads and our own wisdom in making the correct decision for the district. Because I will touch on this later, but I've seen some squandering in other school districts.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, we're going to start with you on this question. And the Broken Arrow School District has 5 years left on the current bond. What challenges do you see, and how would you suggest to get through the next 5 years?
That's very challenging because the bonds depend on the markets to have the return on it. And our markets right now are very up and down, very unstable. You hear all kind of forecasters talking about you better go to gold. They're talking about the next couple of years are going to be very hard on a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses are reporting with losses. So the bonds are another thing where we're going to have to be creative in getting the finances and the funding that we need to keep meeting the needs, to meet the payrolls, to do the things to build the schools, basically, the bonds are for, that we need to build. All the other sources of finances, we're going to have to look at seeing if there are other ways that we can use those fundings, meet the needs, help Broken Arrow to be what we need to be. Our children have to have good schools. So it's something that we're not going to be able to kick down the road. We're going to have to look at the budget. We're going to have to look at the finances. We're going to have to look at the things that we can do out in the market. And like I said, the markets don't really look that good right now, but we are going to find a way because our kids are worth it. We've got to do it for our kids. We're going to make the schools, we're going to be able to pay the teachers, and we're going to do it as fiscally responsibly as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. JW?
Yeah, I
Could
guess
you
it's-
use your microphone, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Thank you.
We all talk about money, and there's two sides of money. One is getting it in, the other is spending it. Again, I made a living doing that. I was a professional manager. I think and you always hear this stuff about, oh, I'm going to do a forensic audit. Forensic audit you do when you're going to put somebody in jail. All audits are just the same except the way you collect the evidence. So I just like to do an audit of all the departments. I'd like to interview people and have them tell me, what do you do? What's your job? We used to do this at GE all the time. Come in and give me an explanation of what you do here. And people would either do pretty good or do pretty bad, but we could pretty much weed out a lot of people that we didn't need. And GE was known as one of the best managed companies in the world when it was before Jeff Immelt got in there. So anyway, that's what I'd look at. I've got a college degree. I mentioned a lot of people that have a college degree. I wanted to volunteer. I mean, I'm a biology major. I'm a business guy. There's several things that I could help on. And they gave me a website and had me go into this thing, and it was really ridiculous just trying to find it and get to it. And I filled it out, never heard a word, just crickets squeaking. I would ramp that thing up because I know there's good people out here that could do some of that stuff. And even if it was just tutoring, there's good people out here that could do that if we had it where people could actually get in there and volunteer. It's just not a good system right now. So, again, looking at the budgets, make sure the budgets are rational, make sure the money's being spent the way it should be, and making sure you got the right people in key positions to manage the budgets.
Okay, thank you. George?
Can you ask the question again?
I sure can. The Broken Arrow School District has 5 years left on the current bond. What challenges do you see, and how would you suggest to get through the next 5 years?
Well, one challenge, as I mentioned, is that material prices have skyrocketed, and that changes when you are doing your planning, your future planning. You go out and you get budgeting from your contractors, but it's not guaranteed. It's just, this is a budget that we're working with until we have plans drawn up and we get all those things completed. And so then if it's a year later, by the time the plans are completed, now it's out to bid and it's costing 50% more than what the budget was, and we have that shortfall. So, excuse me, some of the plans that we may have to do during this bond issue, maybe we have this school that we're building and we have to shorten it. Maybe instead of doing 20 classrooms, we have to do 15. And it's going to cost more to add those 5 than it would originally to build it. But in the short term, that may be something we have to do, is to scale back our building just for until that next bond issue where we can come and then add on to it and build it out. I know that in the past, I've done work out at another school district really close by. And I went to I want to say it was 7 middle schools. And it was part of their bond issue to upgrade all of their science labs in the middle schools. And we went, I say we, I didn't have anything to do with the design of it, but we went in there and we had explosion-proof rooms to store chemicals. There were high-end sinks that had the perfect water stream for cleaning utensils and all those things. And we literally finished it up over a summer. And the next summer I went out there to do more work, and 5 out of the 7 schools had been converted to elementary schools, and those classrooms were storage rooms.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
So as I touched on a little bit earlier, it's not just 5 years, unfortunately. It's significantly longer than that because of the way that the current state law is written. So we're looking at probably more like 10 years before we can go back and do another bond package. So I think the first thing is learning from the last bond package that was done for 10 years, that's just too long to build bond packages. There's too many things that evolve in a 10-year period for you to be able to plan appropriately for that amount of time. In the current bond package, what we have left is 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, 2 auditoriums are what are approved, and there's a few more miscellaneous improvements that all are listed in that bond package. If we deviate from that, then the voters, you, approve through your last voting on the bond package that is what will be built. And so if we're going to deviate from those items, then we have to go back to the voters to get approval for that. And so we are pretty well tied to what those things are unless we're prepared to go back. Now, some ideas that have been discussed and I think are fairly logical is using, instead of building a whole new elementary school, there's a handful of schools that have been built to be added onto. So Rosewood is one, Timber Ridge is one, Highland Park is one, that all can just be added additional wings onto. So I think that's a fairly cost-effective way to get more elementary school classrooms. From a middle school standpoint, I think that gets more complex. There is some talk about looking at possibly an 8th grade center, but there's complications with that because you create kind of the same thing we have as a freshman academy. With anybody who's had a kid that's gone through there knows that's a whole thing. So it's going to be very challenging for Broken Arrow, and we're going to have to figure out how we do that. But it does include going to the legislators to work on being able to go back and bond again sooner rather than waiting additional years after 2026.
Okay, thank you. JW, you'll be first with this one, and this is kind of a long question, one of the long ones I was talking about. Transparency of school boards and their work has come to the forefront and under great scrutiny during the past 18 months. How exactly would you combat the perceived lack of communication of decisions and strategy for curriculum, bond issues, and similar big decisions to the voters, taxpayers, parents you represent if you were elected?
Well, like I said earlier, I've been to the school board meetings, and to get a word in at those meetings is kind of hard, and they give you very limited time to speak. I don't know why in the world we couldn't have some of the schools, and like, for instance, I'm in Zone 2, in that school that maybe once a month I'd go from one school to the next school and have local Zone 2 meetings in those places. And that way they can kind of flesh out the issues and get me, if I'm the counselor, kind of give me a heads up on it when we get into the big meeting. I can kind of lead the discussion then and try to take it in that direction. Even if we're not at a full board meeting, with everybody there, we can still do some things in the background to try to address those issues. So I just look for like maybe creative ways to try to get the parents involved and getting the people involved and trying to figure out how to make this thing work. I don't know that we have a big issue with transparency. I know some of these schools are horrible. School boards, things you're seeing on TV today. I'll be honest with you, I'd be in jail if they did some of the things to my kids that they do with these kids. I mean, I would be. I'd be in jail. So, but I don't know that we have that problem in Broken Arrow. I think we've got a pretty good group of people. So I think I just try to give people an opportunity to get their voices heard instead of going down there and writing down a piece of paper or however they do it now, and take a chance that you'll get to heard. And it's kind of like when you try to introduce yourself in here for 2 minutes, and you really got more to say than 2 minutes, but that's all you got. So my thing is, let's give them another avenue. I'd make sure they had my email address and things like that, and I don't know if I'd give them my personal phone number, but I'd try to make sure they had as many ways to contact me as possible. When I was a manager for GE, we were 24/7, so I'd get phone calls at 1 in the morning. You got a tech at a hospital and something's going on, and so I'm used to that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I want to do it again, but I'm just saying those are some of the things you could do. Thank you.
Okay, George?
Can you ask that question again?
I sure will. Transparency of school boards and their work has come to the forefront and under great scrutiny during the past 18 months. How exactly would you combat the perceived lack of communication of decisions and strategy for curriculum, bond issues, and similar big decisions to the voters, taxpayers, parents you represent if you were elected?
I think it starts with the school board page on the Broken Arrow Public Schools website. Because right now, if you go there, it lists names, and that's all you get. It would be awesome if it listed responsibilities and curriculum options that they've had to choose from, and which ones they chose and why, and things of that nature that are actually the things that people want to know. I mean, the whole thing about transparency is you can be as transparent as you want to, but if you can't get through the closed door to see, it doesn't matter. But honestly, I mean, I think it'd be good to have, and I don't know, maybe the school board, what they're debating on and stuff like that goes out every month. I've only seen where it's posted, where you can download, here's all the things they're going over, but there's very little information on those things. And so it's hard to find out, like, what are, they go, okay, here's our thing, and when you're sitting in the school board meeting, okay, yes, yes, okay, and you're like, what was that they were even voting on? I have no idea. So maybe it would be relatively simple, one would think, for a web designer to design a page where that information is there, where people can see it, and then they can understand this is what the school board is doing. This is what they're actually voting on. This is what's under discussion right now. Because right now, that is really, at least to me, it's been really difficult to find.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
Yeah, so I think in Broken Arrow, one, I feel pretty blessed that we have some city councilors that have led the way in terms of communication and transparency about what they're doing and what they're involved in out in the community. And I find that I think I would probably follow some of the same paths they have, which is just really increasing the communication that I'm giving out to the community. In addition to that, I think our district does an amazing job of providing communication, but not always the why behind the decisions that they've made or why something is being handled that way. And so one of the things that I would do is encourage communications. And I think for many of us, we saw that just recently with the closure of the schools. There was a lot more detail about why we had to close, how many teachers had been out. And so encouraging them to just consistently think about why is something happening out in the district so that people can understand it. The school board meeting minutes are out there, and there's always an opportunity. I know all of our school board members get emails from citizens that have questions, and I hope they do their best to respond to that. I would think so. I know I would, so that I can respond to that. But then in addition to that is really just the connections I have with my kids being in the schools. I get to hear from a lot of parents all of the time in Broken Arrow because I'm always in the schools. I spend probably 20 hours a week sometimes, or more, depending on dance weeks and teacher appreciation weeks and all the things, getting to hear directly from the teachers, getting to hear from the parents, participating in PTA. I would continue to come to the PTA meetings, even as a school board member, just to sit in and listen in, because it's a great source of information, of hearing how parents are feeling and thinking, and then providing information back to them. So I think those are all different ways that we could increase transparency for the parents and the citizens of the district.
Okay, thank you. Debbie?
You said the perceived lack of transparency, and I think that is very true. I don't think that our school board wants to hide things from anyone, but there are a lot of things that people don't know, and they don't know how to get that information. People want to know, what I've heard as I've been talking to a lot of the parents here in Zone 2, what curriculum is actually being taught? How are they being taught to read? Are they learning phonics? Are they, because like me, I don't have children right now in the school. I have grandchildren. Now I know when my kids were in school, I could see what they were doing. I could talk to the teachers. So I think it's up to the school board members to reach out to our district and say, look, let's have a talk about this. What are your concerns? I will tell you what the school board is talking about, and this is what we're thinking about. What do you think about that? And get feedback from the parents. A great frustration, I think, on the parents' part is that they don't feel like they're being heard, that the concerns that they have, nobody's listening. They just talk, and then nobody even responds to them. Nobody tells them, okay, this is what we'll do about it. So I think it is a perceived lack of transparency, but I think we just need to do better in the communication. We need to be able to talk to the people, the parents, and they need to be able to talk to us. So I think it's something that can be fixed.
Okay, George, you're up first on this one, and it's another long question. Although a law was passed in Oklahoma making CRT illegal, we know school boards have gone rogue in the past year in defiance of other measures. What actions can you take as a school board member to ensure the teaching of CRT in our school is truly eliminated? How would you proactively inspect the district for compliance?
So that's a great question. The first thing we have to understand about CRT is critical race theory, that it stems from critical theory, which is a Marxist idea and how to divide and separate people so that you can take them out one class at a time. And so critical race theory is using those same things, but instead of the workers versus the I can't remember the word. Proletariat. But yeah, proletariat, thank you, is now they're dividing it by race. And if they can divide us, then they can conquer us. And so it's obviously the worst thing to come out of teaching ideas in a long time. But as far as addressing it and making sure that it's taken out, I would ask parents and talk to students, because if we find a teacher that is teaching it in opposition to the law, I do not have any issues referring them for prosecution. It is a law. If you want to tell my children, 2 of my children are white, 2 of my children are black, if you are telling 2 of my children that they are victims and 2 other ones that they are persecutors, I am not okay with that. I am not okay with that to the point of, I would love to see you prosecuted. It is not something that should be in our schools. My kids don't see color when they look at each other. My kids see my sibling. And so we do not need to divide my family in half over something like this.
Robyn?
So actually, Broken Arrow has already developed a policy that is in place that does not allow for CRT to be taught in our school system. I was going to say elementary schools, but all of our schools. And that policy is on the board website. You're welcome to go and check it out, but it aligns with state policy and has already been developed and approved by the Broken Arrow School Board. So, you know, we have a lot of teachers, and I would love to believe that every teacher follows board policy exactly, but you can't guarantee that. And so if that is why we count on parents to communicate with school board members, with admin at the high school or wherever it's being taught, so that we can find out what's going on, what is the subject matter that's being taught, how is it being taught, does it align with policy, what corrections need to be made. I don't know that it's always that teachers are intentionally trying to not do what the district is asking them to do. So it really is about, you know, identifying what's going on. And obviously, in any circumstances, there's always teachers that have corrective plans that they go through and are being worked on by the district to help them to get better at what they do. And so I would, you know, want to make sure that we were aligning them with the district and state policy.
Okay, thank you, Robyn. Debbie?
I think we know that critical race theory has been, a law has been made against it. I think Governor Stitt was wise to do that. We know that in the schools they don't use those words, critical race theory, but there are other words like equity and diversity and inclusion that they use, and it means the same thing. So I think parents wonder, even though there is a law that says don't be teaching that one sex or one race is better than another sex or race, or because of any attributes of your person that you could be discriminated against. We see in some other states even where they have a choice whether to wear a mask or not wear a mask, and some teachers will put all the children who don't wear a mask in a corner and some that wear a mask out here in the middle. So it's like, not that it's by rote that it's in there, but it's just sometimes a preference that the perception is that this should be separated. But I think we need to honor the parents' wishes in the medical things that they choose for their children. Critical race theory is one of the things that's not medical, but it still is a parent choice that they don't want their children being taught these Marxist ideologies. So we know that they don't work. We've seen socialism and communism fail all over the world, and we don't want to teach our children in those things because we know it's a failing ideology. And America, if they would be taught our Constitution is the only constitution of all the governments that gives the power to the people. It protects our God-given rights, and our children need to be taught that.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. JW?
Yeah, the CRT thing's something.
Can you use your microphone, please? Thank you.
The CRT thing's something that's really fried my grits, as I used to say on Hee Haw. You know, it's two sides of the same coin. According to them, if you're successful, it's because you benefited from race, and if you're not successful, it's because you didn't. I mean, it's really crazy how they put this thing together. One thing I would do is I would ask for a syllabus for every class. I mean, I did this when I was in high school. Believe it or not, Little Valley High School out there in Jefferson County, Kentucky, actually had syllabus, at least in our high school. And of course, all of our college classes, we had syllabus. And I'd also want a reading list. So I want a reading list that people are going to have to use for that class, and then a recommended reading list to find out what they're pushing. The other thing I'd probably look at is just what is in our high school, what is in our libraries. I hear people coming into these schools and parents, and you go in there and you find, I mean, some of the god-awful stuff you could ever think of that they're pushing down our kids' throats, or even making it available to them. I mean, I remember in high school in Valley, we had a grown-up section, you know, that they would, you couldn't go in there until you were so old or something. But I would really vet that thing and make sure that we've got that tied down pretty tight. I would look at putting cameras in classes. I wasn't very big on that for a long time until they started this distant learning. And now, I'm a grandparent, but my grandkids stay at our house a lot. And I got to sit in there and kind of watch what was going on. And when it got over, I could correct the teachers, for my kids. Kidding. One thing I think we can do too is, if I was a counselor, I'd want to go visit the schools. I mean, I don't know if that's something you can do. I mean, I got to find out all the legal stuff about that. But why couldn't I be standing there at the bus dock when people are getting off the bus and parents are dropping their kids off, and just saying hi, how's it going? So I think something like that's very possible. Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Thank you, JW. Okay, Robyn, you'll be the first one to answer this question. What particular experiences or skills have you prepared you to serve as, that has prepared you to serve as a board member?
So I think, obviously, the volunteerism that I've done with the school board so far on the long-range planning committee. I sit on the gifted advisory board right now. I'm also on the advanced math committee to try to help continue to improve how our kids are learning. I think all of those are very helpful. Obviously, the years of PTA experience are incredibly beneficial. The time that I've spent in the schools with the kids, with the teachers, with the admin is invaluable in terms of understanding the challenges and the frustrations that they have on a daily basis. I think obviously being a mom is always a great attribute to bring to the table, because there's a lot of balancing that goes in. But then all of the work that I've done in the community, understanding how Broken Arrow works, how the city, how the chamber, how the school system are integrated. Our success is tied to all three. As a community, we can't continue to grow our economic development without a great public school system. We can't continue to develop a great public school system without economic development that funds that school system. So I think the understanding of how those things are integrated is invaluable to sitting on the board. And then I'm a financial advisor, so I spend a lot of time looking at dollars and cents and money and understanding how investing works and how bond packages work. And so that's very beneficial from the budgeting standpoint and being able to bring that expertise to it. So all of those things combined together to allow me to hopefully benefit our school system and our kids.
Thank you. Debbie?
On the school board, there are lots of decisions that must be made, lots of different points of view. So in our company, there's always growth and different ideas of how to do things. So what I have developed is an ability to listen to the different points of view of many people and to be able to bring them into a consensus to do, everybody can agree, let's do this, so that there is agreement even though everyone started out with different opinions. I have always, since I was in high school, I was on the student council, I was in our sorority, I was a vice president and president of it, so I have always seen where there's a place that needs leadership, that I have been able to get into that spot and be able to help improve the, not just how things are done, but the outcome, so that I can see what needs to be done, what are the possibilities of getting it done, and let's choose and let's look at, because there's always sometimes unintended consequences, so let's talk it out and see what might be unintended consequences. Let's make the best decision the first time, kind of like my husband did building stuff and everything. He always did measure twice and cut once, you know, so let's look at all the sides first, let's talk it out, let's be able to communicate, you know, calmly. Everybody has a different opinion, we understand that, but we can talk about it, and let's do the best thing for the children, for our school, for our community. So I think that has helped me a lot to be able to mitigate circumstances like that, but also the budgeting, to be able to look and see ahead, okay, this is going to be coming our way, how are we going to prepare to be able to meet that need? So, just knowing that God's principles that He has in the Word are true and wise, and that as I've walked out my Christian life, I have seen Him always lead me, that the truth makes us free. And so I will depend upon that wisdom from the Word as well.
Okay, thank you. JW? Yep.
I guess I kind of look at everything because my life has been as a businessman, managing businesses. And the people that make up these businesses are people. You have customers, you have employees, you have corporations. And I dealt with those not every day, but every week. Customers, like individuals, I deal with them sometimes every day. But you learn how to, it's your people skills. So you learn how to do those kinds of things. Again, as a business guy, it's like juggling balls because, you've got somebody in your office that you're reprimanding, and you got another guy coming in right after him, you're going to give him a reward. And you've got to figure out how to wear all those hats and do all those kinds of things and make it look successful. So anyway, I think it's just a matter of you having the experience that you've gained. I've dealt with some union people who were pretty rough, and I've dealt with some hospitals that were just pretty nice. So, it's just, in the clients, some of them are like St. Francis Hospital down here, and then some of them be like a mom and dad doctor's office, and then of course then there's somebody out there in their home that their washing machine didn't work. So I dealt with those people all the time for 40 years, and I was a number one, number two in my particular business for that whole time. So
Thank you. George?
So most options that are given to us are A, B options. You have option A or option B. But I'm not a big fan of A, B options. I'm a really big fan of making option C. And for instance, I spent 4 summers on a potato digger. That means I was out there on a machine that was plowing into the ground, dragging potatoes up. It would come up on a belt, it would hit a spinner, but guess what? The machine can't tell the difference between potatoes and dirt clods. So my job was to stand up there in the dust and everything and find the dirt clods and throw them out, and the bad potatoes. And once in a while you'd grab a potato and it was hollow. Well, not exactly hollow, there was stuff in it and it was gooey. And so when that happened, you had choices. What do I do here? I can try to fling it off or whatever, but the best solution was actually to grab a dirt clod, crush it, put it on your thumb, and then take that stuff off, right? Finding an ingenious solution, that's what one of the things I bring to the table. I spent time on a farm working very hard, 13, 14 hours a day, even as a teenager. I spent 4 years doing customer service. I waited tables for 3, and I did technical support for DirecTV for a year. I spent 10 years in the field solving problems in construction, and then I spent the last 10 years in the office solving problems. And solving problems is a very big part of what the school board does. Not to mention, oh my, I'm out of time.
Thank you. Debbie, you'll be answering this question first. Have you received any donations or endorsements from any groups? If so, which groups?
Have I received endorsements in which groups? Yes, I have received an endorsement from the Tulsa County Republican Party. I have received an endorsement from the Tulsa Beacon. I have received an endorsement from Linda Murphy, who had been the Secretary of Education. I have received an endorsement from Nancy Huff, who is the president of Teach the Children International. And I have received an endorsement from some precinct chairmen in this district.
Okay. JW?
Sorry, was the question donations?
Yeah, have you received any donations or endorsements?
Okay.
Yes, from any groups. If so, which groups? JW?
no.
Okay. George?
One of the things about this whole race that's been very interesting to me is that for a nonpartisan race, how quickly political it seemed to be. I started this whole thing deciding I was not going to invest a bunch of money into a volunteer position. I have had someone offer to assist, and that's why I have yard signs. But as far as endorsements or donations, really to this point, no.
Okay, Robyn?
No.
Okay. JW, you'll be the first one to answer this question. Do you have children, grandchildren attending Broken Arrow schools, or are you a member of PTA, the Parent Teacher Association?
I do have grandchildren in
Use
this.
your microphone, please.
I do have grandchildren. I think I told you I had 4 children and 9 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. 4 of my great-grandchildren live in Kentucky. No, that's wrong. One of them lives in Kentucky. 4 of them live in Oklahoma. I am not a member of the PTA, although I do go up to, when my granddaughter's having a function or something like that, they need an adult in there. I go up there and do those things all the time. But I've done my time doing that when I was, had the direct parents doing it. But now I'm a grandparent. I can kind of watch them, and I don't have to get as involved as I used to.
Okay, George?
So I have a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old, both of them at Sequoia. My 12-year-old is a national champion in cheerleading. They went to Dallas. Yeah, they went to Dallas a couple of weekends ago and took the national title in game day. First time Broken Arrow Junior High has ever received a national title in cheer. And I'm not saying it's because of him, but I mean, I'm just throwing dots out there. You guys connect them how you like. I have a, what is he, 23-year-old, I think, who I haven't seen in a while because he left MAD after we adopted him when he was only a month shy of his 18th birthday. And so that was a very interesting time. But he is not in the Broken Arrow schools any longer. But then I have a 4-year-old who will be 5 tomorrow, and he is in the early childhood center, and so just about to move into elementary. While my 12-year-old and my 11-year-old were in elementary, my wife spent basically the whole 7 years that they were in elementary. She was working with the PTA. And I guess I'm a member of Sequoia too. You pay your dues, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But she was actually on the board for several years, so I got the feedback quite a bit, and it was very, very helpful to understand what is going on in the school and what are the events that are happening, what are the reactions of parents to various things, what is going on in the classrooms, and those things are very, very much part of what I'm telling you about tonight.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
Yeah, so clearly I've spoken on this a little bit. Just as a thing, yes, I have an 11 and 13-year-old, so somehow, some way, as any parent will say, he is going to be a freshman next year. I don't know how that's possible, but apparently that's a thing that's going to happen, and he's going to go up to the freshman academy. I am a member of actually every PTA in Zone 2, as well as Spring Creek's PTA. So Vandiver, Leisure Park, Glenwood, Sequoia, Childers, the Freshman Academy, Spring Creek, and the high school, since that's kind of the overarching PTA for the entire district. And then have also been on the board for Spring Creek's PTA as the VP of membership. I have been the president of the Childers PTA for the last 2 years, and then have sat on BAPTA's council as the membership chair. So very familiar and honored to participate in that organization and help support our students, teachers, and our parents.
Okay, Debbie?
I had been a member of PTA for many years. My kids are 15 years apart, so I was a member of PTA for a long time, and I served as PTA treasurer in the local PTA. I have 9 grandchildren who are in the schools here in Broken Arrow. 5 of them are in Epic, and 4 of them are in in-person schools of different, some of them are, no, none of the in-person kids are in my Zone 2 here, but the Epic students are in Zone 2. Repeat the question. What else was there about
Do you have children, grandchildren attending Broken Arrow schools? Are you a member of PTA, the Parent Teacher Association?
Okay, I have answered that. Thanks.
Okay, George, you'll be the first one to answer this question. What organizations are you involved in?
That's a fun question. So I've been an active member at Guts Church for the last 23 years. About 9 of those I spent working with kids in some manner or fashion. I spent about 6.5 years as lead teacher in the elementary kids church, about 5 of those as lead teacher. So I had to come up with the curriculum every week and to do the teaching and all of that nature. Right now, my son and my daughter are a part of the local Trail Life and American Heritage Girls troops, which are scouting organizations that are unapologetically Christian. And so I serve as troop master. This is my 3rd year, I think, as troop master for the Trail Life troop. And we work very closely with our sister troop as well. So we coordinate a lot of those things together. And so we've seen growth in our Trail Life troop from when I took over 2.5 years ago of about 28 boys to right now we have about 80, I think. And so it's been really cool watching that growth. And other organizations I cannot think of, but that is what I've been doing with my time serving the community.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
Yeah. Man, if I'd known this question was coming, I'd have held off on all that stuff until now so you didn't have to hear it again. So I am a member of the Rotary Club of Broken Arrow. I have been for the last almost 4 years and currently am the president-elect, so will serve as president from July of this next year through June of the following one. Guess what, guys? The PTA, have you heard about it? It's a thing. I do it all the time. So I will be wrapping up my presidency as the Childers president this year, finishing in May, and will be gratefully turning that over to some amazing PTA members who are going to step in and continue great tradition at Childers. I have been participating in Leadership Broken Arrow with the Broken Arrow Chamber for the last 4 years, and we'll be wrapping up chairing that at the end of June of this year, and we'll be moving off of that. And then I'm a very active member of the Chamber, so I am at all of the Chamber's monthly luncheons, the Successful Women's Luncheons, and have volunteered for the last several years with Rooster Days as the primary volunteer coordinator for this last year. So if y'all are unhappy about the ticket booths, my bad. It's totally me that did not have somebody in there for you. And then also participated in Main Street Burn, the Gala, and the Wine Walk with the Chamber. So, and then I wasn't going to forget you, don't you worry. And then I've spent the last 3 years helping Deborah Wimpy with Shamrock the Rose in the VIP area, which is an honor and goes towards Soldiers Wish, which is a great organization, so love participating in that. And then, I raise kids. That's a thing I do on the side too, and work my full-time job. So that's just kind of a daily life for Robyn Havener. I'm trying to keep up with Deborah Wimpy. Oh.
Good luck.
Thank you. Debbie?
Through my business, I am a member of TCIA, which is a Tree Care Industry Association. I am also a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Personally, I'm a member of a local church where I have taught many different positions.
JW?
I'm probably not going to sound as involved as a lot of people, but I was involved in PTA when my older kids were younger. And I used to, I don't know if you all know what Junior Achievement is, but I used to have a thing called Junior Achievement, and I used to be one of the sponsors in that. But my life for probably the last 30 of my years, or the first 30, was on Monday morning I'd get on an airplane, and on Friday night I'd get off. So that was my life for years and years. I did teach on the weekends. I teach coach pitch baseball and my daughter's softball and stuff like that. I actually am a black belt in karate, and I had my own karate school, and I taught that, and I did what I could, but I was very limited in time. Excuses.
Okay, thank you. Robyn, you'll be the first one to answer this question. What is the school board member's role and responsibility? How does that role differ from the superintendent?
So we've touched on this a little bit, but approving budgets is a big part of what the school board does, building board policies and approving board policies, and then hiring the superintendent. So what the school board does not do is manage the day-to-day operations of the district. That is what falls under the superintendent. So coming up with things like helping to build out the bond packages when we finally get to do that again, hopefully at some point, that helps fall under the school board. But those are the primary things that the school board has the opportunity to impact. So approving budget items, approving donations, that's always a fun thing I know they get to do, and then recognizing achievements in the district is a big part of their school board meetings.
Okay, thank you. Debbie?
The job of the school board is to oversee, make policy for all the schools in the district. The school board hires the superintendent. The school board also has authority over teachers and librarians in the district. The superintendent's job is to see to it that the policies are carried out so that there is unity in the school board and that the policies of the school board are carried out.
Okay, thank you. JW?
I kind of look at it like,
Can you use your microphone, please?
sorry, I kind of look at it like government. You have a legislative branch, you got an executive branch, and the school board is like the legislative branch. They're the ones that are going to come up with the rules and propose everything, and then the executive branch is actually going to dispose of them. They're going to put them all in action. So, the school board, the legislative branch's job too is to watch over the executive branch and make sure they stay in their boundaries. And of course, most executive branch people will just push those boundaries as hard as you can. So it's a little bit of a balance and a little bit of a work effort to get them all working together. But I think it's pretty clear cut.
Okay, thank you. George?
So one of the other things that school boards do is they choose the curriculum, and that is probably the primary thing that is important to each individual parent and student. Had somewhere I was going, and then my train got derailed. One of the important things that they can do with their policy making is create a culture. And that's one of the things when it comes to being short on teachers. As they mentioned earlier, there's not as many people going to school to be a teacher. So if we need more teachers, the only way we're going to do that is by attrition, by getting them from somebody else. The only way that can happen is if we have a culture that teachers love to be a part of. Because the teacher pay is important, and obviously teachers are severely underpaid for what they do. But in the absence, if pay were not the issue, what's the next most important thing? It's culture. I've been at the same company for 21 years. I can tell you it's not because they pay the best, but it's because they appreciate me for what I do. They allow me the freedom to do my job without micromanaging me and things of that nature. And if we can set up a culture where teachers are appreciated and where they are encouraged to do their very best and that they will be taken care of, I mean, whether the parents, the students, if they will be allowed to do their job well, then more teachers will come join them. So culture.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, you'll be answering this first. Besides attending a school board meeting, what can or will you do as a Board of Education member to hear parent concerns?
Besides being on the school board, there are other committees that you are a member of. But I would plan to meet with parents, have meetings where the parents can come, have an open door policy where they can email me with questions, with ideas, with problems. I can be the person that can take it to the whole board and say, we need to work on this, so that I can be an advocate for the parents, so that the parents know, again, we're back to being heard and that their wishes are being honored.
Okay, thank you. JW?
Yeah, I think I talked a little about this a while ago, but I would I would try to come up with a way that, and again, I don't know if it's legal. I'd have to find out all that kind of stuff. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but why I couldn't meet and, once, with every one of the schools, with the parents, at least once a month, so that, before the school board. So, I get their ideas, they get a chance to spend more than 2 minutes expressing them. I try to consolidate them, then get into the school board, and when they come over to the school board, if they don't, whichever, but I'll get them presented and see if I can't get them fast-tracked or at least get them started down that path. I think the thing when I was talking about going to this, I was always a hand-ons manager when I was managing people. I always found that if you got right involved in it, things went a lot better. And I've seen people, I don't know who they are, but I've seen people at the schools that when they were with the bus loading dock and things, they're standing there and talking to people, and I don't know why that couldn't be me. If I'm on the school board, why can't I stand there and greet the parents, say hi to the kids? After a while, they'll get to know me. If I could do that, once a week for the schools, I think they'd get to know me, and we ought to be able to build a pretty good rapport. Again, people skills was why I was, like I said, I was promoted so many times, because you don't do it without your people. So I think I could do a pretty good job at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
George?
Can you ask the question again?
The question is, besides attending a school board meeting, what can you or will you do as a Board of Education member to hear parent concerns?
Gotcha. Well, the best way to get information is straight from the horse's mouth, as the saying went. So I work full-time. I work full-time plus the extracurriculars like we talked about, the trail life meetings and weekend camping and things of that nature. So to be at the bus stop and talking to people would be very difficult for me, but it doesn't mean I can't be in contact with people that are mixing constantly. One of my wife's really good friends is was the PTA president at Vandiver for several years. Well, because of that, we got to know a lot of things that were going on in the school. I didn't need to talk to every parent in the school to find out what was going on and what the frustrations were and what the teachers were dealing with and things of that nature. I just needed to know somebody that was in there listening. And so that would be my take, would be to set up a network of people that are in the know, that are listening to parents, that are listening to teachers, that are talking to principals, and so that I can gather that information and utilize it in the best way possible. In the school board meeting is not really where all of the discussion takes place. There can't be 3 board members together, because that becomes a quorum and they can't make a decision there. But 2 of the board members will meet with the superintendent and some others, and they will discuss what is going on and what the things that are happening. And then those minutes, as it were, will go to the other board members so they can be apprised of, here's the issues that we're dealing with. And so that would be me reading the minutes and making sure to make good decisions.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
So I think the benefit of being so involved with my kids and the PTA is that I do have a lot of great relationships with a lot of amazing parents in our district that I get to hear from all the time. In addition to that, I'm on the Broken Arrow Schools Parents Chat. I think that's the Broken Arrow Schools Parent Chat. And so there's a lot of times that you can see patterns and trends when you have somebody post and then you have 40 parents that post along with it that says, yes, me too, yes, I'm also having this issue. And so it's a great way from an observant standpoint to just pay attention to what are those things that are coming up for parents and hearing what they are and understanding what their touch points and frustration points are with the district. And so if you are a parent right now in BA and you have a kid home doing IXL, you know that that is not a super pleasant thing right now. And so that's one of those things that I think can help me keep up with what are the concerns that parents have. In addition, my own Facebook page for my school board run would stay available for people to continue to keep up with what's going on so that I can post updates as appropriate and as legal to let people communicate what's going on. And then just my general involvement in the community. When I'm out all of the time, interacting with our parents and our community members, then I get a lot of opportunity to receive that feedback from them of what their concerns are, so that I know what we need to work on within the district.
Okay, that is all the questions. So now you'll each have 2 minutes to add anything you would like to address and tell us why we should vote for you. And so we're going to start with you, Debbie, and we'll go down the table since we started with JR at the beginning. JW, sorry.
All right, so I am running for school board because, and I think we all know how important our schools are to our community. We need good schools because good schools make for a good community. We want our children to be successful. We want them to learn all the things that they need to be able to solve problems, to think critically, to go on and pursue their goals and their dreams. I want to make sure that our schools don't circumvent our Constitution and the freedoms that it protects for us. We don't want to see, we talked about certain theories and things that had been in the schools. We want to make sure that we hold the line against things that would be detrimental to our kids. We've seen it in other states. We've seen it on the TV all last summer. We want to make sure those things are not in our schools. We want to be sure that our kids are safe in the schools, that they're not seeing things that they shouldn't be seeing, that they are safe and protected. So I want to let you know that all the kids in Broken Arrow, haven't you ever done this? I think I'm not the only one. When you get waited on by a young adult, you're so proud of them when they do a good job. They're not my child, but I know somebody's very proud of them. And I'm thankful that they are doing a good job and they are making our community better. And they came from Broken Arrow schools. So I am very proud of our school. I'm very proud of our community. I think that the great Broken Arrow community is reflected in our great schools, and I want to make sure that it stays that way.
Okay, thank you. Robyn?
So I think, I am so proud of who we are as a community and as a district. We do a lot incredibly well here. And I just deeply believe that this needs to be a place where our kids want to come back and live here. And they need to have economic opportunity to be able to do that. And so we need to be able to bring jobs here that are interesting to them so that they want to stay here. I don't know about those that are grandparents in this room, but probably one of the hardest things is having your grandparent kids move away and not being close to you. And so I want my kids to want to live here in Broken Arrow. And I want to see every single child here in Broken Arrow have the opportunity to succeed. So I want to see us continue to diversify how we learn and reach kids. Programs like our apprenticeship programs and Vanguard and our commitment with Tulsa Tech and TCC and Early College High. All of these programs create interesting and new ways for our kids to learn and graduate and go forward. I want to make sure that our kids are strong emotionally, mentally, so that they have the resilience to go out and be successful out in the world. And I want to continue to build connections and relationships between parents and our legislators so that we make sure that the laws that are being passed serve public education and every child in this city. And I am running because I just truly, deeply believe in the kids of this district, and I want to see them just thrive in the world.
Thank you. George?
I'm going to need a little bit of audience participation here. If you're super excited, there's only a couple minutes left and you get to stand up from these semi-uncomfortable chairs. Give me a rousing huzzah! All right. I've been very appreciative of the school board that we've had already, that they've been maintaining a high level of parental involvement and making sure that kids have the freedom to be themselves and not putting insane requirements on us. And I honestly would not be okay with muzzling my children again. And that really has nothing to do with why I'm running. I'm running because I felt like I was supposed to step into this arena. And I don't have a real strong passion for Broken Arrow per se, but I am very appreciative to live where I live. I'm appreciative to the city council who has made valiant efforts and succeeded in keeping us free and allowing us to live as strong, free Americans instead of people asking, can we go outside now? And so all I wanted to do is serve. All I want to do is help make things better and to throw my capabilities into areas that can use them. And this just seemed like the step I'm supposed to take, and I sincerely believe God's led me this direction. So thank you all for being here tonight and spending your time with us and listening carefully to the responses and hopefully enjoying a little bit of it.
Thank you. JW?
Okay, I probably have a little bit of different perspective. I still remember when you had local schools. Back in the 1950s when I started school, you had a local school, might have had 400 or 500 kids in it. You had a principal and a secretary and a nurse. And that was about it. I don't even remember a counselor until I got into high school. I've lived through double sessions, up and down staircases, leisure suits, and the bell-bottom pants. So I've been around and seen a lot of things happening. My heart is in this thing because I have all these children. And the happiest days of my life was when my children, my grandchildren, or my great-grandchildren come over and play with me, okay? I love children. One of the things that, and I did this, I was a tough guy. I was one of those guys that I was always in trouble. And that's why I got into karate, and I actually taught karate, had my own school. And I did that because it helped me move my aggression out a little bit. And I kind of mellowed over the years. And one of the things I never let my kids say was hate. So I hate that word. I just think it's a mean word. So anyway, I'm getting in this to try to protect my grandchildren, try to have a good example, and to try to do everything I can to make Broken Arrow schools great again, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do want to thank Mayor Deborah Wimpy, who's in the audience, and also Vice Mayor Christy Gillespie. It is my honor and pleasure to serve with you, and thank you for coming out tonight. We also have Sharon Wimpley, who is the Tulsa Technology School Board member, and thank you, Sharon, for coming out as well. On behalf of the Oklahoma Freedom Fighters, Moms for Liberty, Brian Dean, owner of Water's Edge Event Center, thank you for taking the time to attend this forum. I also want to thank our amazing timekeeper, Representative Ross Ford. Oh, and also the Pritos, is that who did our sound? Thank you, Sarah, and whoever else. And she's saying someone else. Oh, and Rhonda, thank you. Thank you. She knows. Okay. I also want to remind you that early voting is February the 3rd and the 4th. It's at the Tulsa County Election Board. Also, it's at 555 North Denver Avenue. The election day is February the 8th. And thank you for coming. Do you have anything else, Josh? Okay, drive safe. Thank you.